Welcome back, guys. It's Dr. Somji.
And Dr. Solomon.
Today we're going to be talking about our best choices of retinols for every single skin type or indication. Like we've done a previous video on retinols, aka retinoids, part of the retinoid family, that you can see the link below. But today we're going to actually talk about the products that we know and love. I'm going to talk about a few high street brands. You're going to talk about a few of the kind of medical grade brands as well as the prescriptive retinoids as well. So stay tuned. What are retinols? Like, yeah, everyone bandies this name around, but no one kind of knows really.
It's often quite confusing given that there are just a plethora of retinol products. They have different names, they have different brand names. Everyone thinks all retinols are the same, and then you have retinol. The name retinol can be sort of rebranded as a retinol sounding name, but ultimately a retinol is a retinoid derivative, and the retinoids are the families of the vitamin A's. And that's essentially what it is. They are vitamin A derivatives. And
I was gonna say that retinol is part of the retinoid family, and in the skin it gets converted to the most active form called retinoic acid. Now you can get retinoic acid in prescriptive form in terms of tretinoin, which we work patients up. So that's one of the strongest retinoids out there, from like 0.025% even up to even 1% tretinoin. And it's more used for people with very stubborn acne, even acne scarring. It's quite useful for that. And then you got some of the stronger retinoids like tazarotene out there as well, which are fantastic. And then third generation retinoids, such as different adapalene, which I know you prescribe a lot. I see the prescriptions of adapalene on a daily basis. So those are kind of some of the medical things, but retinols belong on the counter. They belong in the high street. They belong actually even in some clinics as well at higher concentrations as well. So before we start, we need to dispel a myth, don't we? Which is a myth about the concentration of retinols, because is a higher concentration more stronger?
if you are referring to the retinol concentration, yes. If you have a high concentration of actual retinol, more of it will be converted to the retinoic acid, and therefore you'll have a stronger effect, not necessarily a better effect, but a stronger effect, because it is all dependent on the skin and what you're trying to achieve. But where it gets a bit tricky, a bit shady, is where the concentration is measured in relation to the total formulation. So you can have, let's say, international units, which is the units we measure actual retinol molecules. You can have 1,000 units of retinol in two different formulations, or you can have 1,000 units in one and 500 units in one. And the one that has 500 units can have a higher concentration because it can be 2% of that formulation, whereas the other one could be 1% of that formulation, but you're getting more retinol on the other one.
Exactly, and it's a classic PR thing, because you see these high concentration retinols and the tube is like this big, and they put a much higher percentage of the total amount in it. So don't look at that, and we're going to go through some of the high street brands to see how we can give you a bit of guidance, but the only ones that you know about in terms of concentrations is prescribed like tretinoin. We know that's pretty basic in terms of concentrations. So what is the best retinol for a beginner? Someone is starting with retinol. What type of retinol would you choose?
I would say you start with a over-the-counter one, and probably starting with 0.5%.
Wow, man, strong.
I do like to go strong initially.
You like? Well, look, don't forget, Dr. Solomon does a sandwich method, don't you? So you put like maybe some hyaluronic acid on before, then put the retinol on, and then put a barrier over the top, so you can put like hyaluronic acid, retinol, squalane on there, especially if you're using deconstructed skincare. So for example, like the Inky list, you can really layer that, and then you can use it on alternate days or even 3 times a week, and then slowly go up. But essentially you're looking for something that doesn't cause a retinoid reaction, so you want to slowly go up. And I mean, like, some of the ones that I've got are the ones that have been quite popular over the years. So you've got these bad boys. So you've definitely got the retinol from the Inky list, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, you can see my video on the Inky list and having a look at the retinol. If you're looking at some of the concentrations, you can see that it does have silicone in there, and most of the products that I've seen with retinol, because it's like a little bit more gritty in texture, people put silicone in there to kind of make it smooth, spread nicely. But I'm not a fan of silicones, just for what it does in the environment, and the rare chance that it causes irritation is probably not a good idea. But this has got packed nice ingredients, a little bit of kind of caprylic glycol, so great emollient sitting on the skin, as well as some nice lipids, hyaluronic acid as well. So it's a nice like all-round formulation that really, you know, if you're, you know, kind of a little bit in, well, first signs of aging, you can start using this retinol, and it's not bad for a beginner. What I think is better is probably the ordinaries range of retinols, because like you said, you can see that there's two different concentrations, right? So you've got 0.2% and 0.5%, and this is the retinol in squalene.
Yeah.
Now, why would you use squalene as opposed to hyaluronic acid mixed with a retinol?
So squalene is an excellent emollient,
Yeah.
and in fact one of the best emollients around, and what that would do is provide that nice barrier,
Yeah.
and it would also encourage hydration of the skin. So whilst you're exfoliating the skin with the retinol as part of what it does, you prevent the dehydration of the skin, which is a risk if you just use a retinol on its own. Furthermore, because you're using the same brand, even though we cannot really tell if the 0.2% or the 0.5% is as a concentration of the rest of the formulation, at least you standardize that range you're using.
Yeah, so you know you can get up
on the range.
One that I've seen that has been put to me, it was actually gifted to me in the post, Revolution Skincare, retinol. And I looked at it and I looked at the price point, I was like, no way is this good. But if you actually look at the ingredients list, it's a very good starter retinol. The retinol appears much lower down on the Inky list, but it's got some cool stuff to help with the barrier. Actually got some nice stuff like shea butter, it's got the Rosa Canina fruit oil in there. Yes, it's got the silicone, which doesn't get my stamp of approval, but it's quite nice. The only kind of downside that I had for this product is, you know, I don't like these things, you know.
Yeah, so if
these
you
things, because it
so
stays there.
we have to do that,
And I just touched it. You know, do
Yeah.
you really want to touch it from my hands?
well, I don't mind actually, right? But you know, it might be the case that
And it leaves
you
a
know,
residue
It leaves a
there.
residue. You might use it one
It's not
day when
clean,
you may
guys.
not, your hands may not be clean, and the following day you pick up some residue, put on the skin.
But it's nice, and I think it's a nice starter, and I don't think, you know, you would get so much irritation from this.
Yeah.
So it's a nice starter. What have I not choosing for a starter that I don't like? Well, actually it's going to be quite controversial, but I do not like the La Roche-Posay ones.
Oh, what is that?
I mean, a lot of people love this, and therefore if you look over here, you see you've got B3, which is fantastic, and you've got retinol in there, and it's a slow release retinol, so it should be good for someone starting. Everything about it is supposed to be there for a beginner's retinol, but I would exercise caution, guys, because yes, it's got that retinol, it's got the B3 in there, and it's got gradual slow release retinol, which, you know, I've seen you prescribe the Reticap in a clinic,
Yeah.
which is slow release retinol, so good concentration of retinol that's slowly released over time. It's a good thing where you get a higher concentration and it's not so irritant because it slowly releases, slowly converts to retinoic acid. But when you start looking at the ingredient list, also known as the Inky list, you can start seeing some problems. We've got denatured alcohol quite high up, which, you know, is not good for people with sensitive skin.
Yeah.
When you're going to be using retinols on the skin, you may get some sensitivity, and you could get into a cycle of sensitivity, which is not great. And then you've got some niacinamide, which is fantastic for that skin barrier, and also would help with kind of pigmentation. Silicone again in there, but you know, it's not terrible. And then you've got some of the retinols that sit there. But then the last ingredient is also a little bit disappointing. You've got perfume in here. So you've got two things that are going to elicit that sort of, what sort of a reaction would you see with
Well,
that?
you may get a sort of dermatitis-like reaction. You may get excessive dryness of the skin, and on top of that, you know, the retinol can be slightly dehydrating. So without any barrier, without any emollient on the skin, and if you have sensitive skin, then you might find them very irritating, and they may put you off retinols when in fact it
Agreed.
is actually just a very unique feature to that specific brand.
So one that actually took me by surprise that I actually recommend, and I think it's a great starter retinol, is the Retinol Reface. So I hadn't seen this brand before, but it's free from everything bad. So free from SLS, free from fragrances, free from phthalates, free from mineral oil, colorants, denatured alcohol. But it's not free from silicone. But that's fine.
Which you're not a fan of.
Well, it's just difficult to formulate a retinol without silicone.
Yeah.
It took me 2.5 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I don't blame them, you know. But nevertheless, you know, it spreads really nicely. It's got some soybean oil in there, retinol. It's a nice starter retinol, you know, for fine lines and wrinkles. And it's a retinol and bakuchiol. So do you know, I mean, you always talk to me about bakuchiol as a great like retinol imitator. So, you know, it has the effects of retinol, but without the irritation. And it's very, very popular. People say it's as effective as retinol, but it truly isn't.
Yeah.
But I think the best formulations will have retinol in a slower, slightly lower concentration, and then add bakuchiol to have that increased effectiveness without the sensitivity. So, you know, this is a really good starter for retinols, and over the recent years, I've been pretty impressed by this. Yeah. So, you know, if you really want to start retinols, this is not too bad. If you really want to work to increase the dosage, then Ordinary is pretty good. Inculus is probably in the middle. I'll probably start with
the Inculus brand.
Yeah, the Inculus brand. Yeah. then the actual Inculus.
Yeah.
And then, you know, look, Revolution for someone with really light, you know, needs, someone that doesn't really need so much change in their skincare, but just wants to maybe just tick the box of having a retinol. Revolution skincare is not bad, and it's at a good price point.
So if I were to have dry skin, what retinol would I pick?
I would actually pick this one.
Yeah.
It's the Kiehl's one. It's the Retinol Skin Renewing Daily Microdose Serum with a precise daily strength concentration of pure retinol, peptides, and ceramides. So you can see that even the way I said it sounds good. But I'm actually pretty impressed with this, to be quite honest. Looking at the ingredients list, you can see that it's got glycerin in there, niacinamide, nice few peptides sitting in there. Crucially, you've also got some ceramides. So this is something for someone with dry skin that wants to use a retinol, because you're going to be supplementing your skin barrier with the ceramides. And like with anything that's a little bit more expensive, it's got a lot more ingredients in there. And you can see that it flows quite nicely.
Yeah.
Have a look at that. I feel it's nice.
Yeah, there's a good sort of flow, good
nice
feel to the skin, and
neutralish.
Very neutral, almost candle-like scent.
Yeah, and you've got sunflower seed oil probably giving you that smell there, which is quite nice. Again, you've got the soybean oil in there, retinol, a nice concentration. I mean, it's a nice all-rounder, and it's great for people wanting to work things up. And, you know, apparently it's one of their biggest selling ones.
Yeah, I see it more as a friendly retinol.
Friendly retinol, someone with dry skin, you don't want to purchase too many products, you just want to purchase one without drying your skin out too much. This is pretty good. So retinols with the ceramide. When I formulated my skincare, I added in ceramides at the end actually, because looking at this formulation, because I was actually quite impressed with it. So this for dry skin, pretty good.
So I want to use a retinol for my body. What do I use?
Well, actually the Paula's Choice one is a fan favorite. A lot of people like that because you've got the retinol, but you've also got some vitamin C and vitamin E in there as well. So that's a slightly higher price point. But the Glow Fairy one has really overtaken because it's this stick that you can apply under skin. Really nice formulation. It's got some squalane, lanolin in there, as well as some vitamin E, and you just need to use it twice weekly. And it's a little stick that you put on the skin that you can put on troublesome areas.
So you get a nice hydration and then a nice exfoliation
at the same time. So I really think that's overtaken it.
Yeah. Okay. So far we've talked about over-the-counter retinols. We've talked about retinols for acne, we talk about retinols for the body. What about a medical grade retinol that can be
one that you can like buy at clinics or Medispas, like Dr. Medispa.
Like Dr. Medispa.
So
not necessarily for use in acne alone.
Not used for acne, just all round. I mean, look, I've taken one big brand, which obviously is Zedo, by Zainab Baji. It's got like a cult following within the industry. And if you look at, it's a popular one actually in my clinic. We stock it. I just took it from the stock room just now. And yes, you've got some retinol in there. You've got some alcohol. We don't know whether it's denatured or not. But you've got some nice skin brighteners like glutathione in there. You've got some nice oils such as sweet almond oil in there too, helping with the hydration. And you know, at the end of the day, you've also got some vitamin C, so you've got ascorbate palmitate in there, which is fantastic. The only thing that really lets it down slightly after all of that is that I think that where you've got all of these ingredients, including something called gluconolactone, which is a fantastic exfoliator, so a mild exfoliator to the skin, the unfortunate thing is that they wanted it to smell a little bit better, so they put linalool, citronellol, geraniol, and limonene in there, and they can, for sensitive skin, sensitize patients.
Irritation.
So I always say to patients at the clinic, this is great as a retinol. It's very strong if you don't have sensitivity, but if you have any form of sensitivity, you wouldn't use this because it's too strong. And that's even at 0.25%.
Yeah, very low concentration, but you can build up as well.
But this is packed with all sorts of stuff. And that's the reason why the price point is so high.
Yeah.
One that I've liked throughout the years, which is one of the unknown brands that I've been prescribing at Dr. Medi's bar for more than a decade, is the Tebiskin Reticap. And it's an interesting formulation because it's a slow release retinol, but it also has SPF in it, which is unusual for a retinol. Which is unusual for a retinol, and they're so confident about it that they can actually, they say that you can wear this during the day. So this is the only retinol that you can wear during the day, which is pretty cool, and it's an unknown gem. Like, people will never tell you this. It's a nice brand. I've used it for years. My patients have been happy on it for many years, and it's a nice clean formulation. One that I'm gonna say, I'm gonna apologize in advance now. So it's the SkinCeuticals one, okay? Now, I'm a big fan of SkinCeuticals, as you've seen on my TikTok, like Facebook, Instagram, and you know, I know SkinCeuticals really well, and they invite me to their annual ball in Paris every year, which is a fantastic event. But this retinol, unfortunately, has denatured alcohol in it. And, you know, I think that nowadays, you know, this formulation needs to improve. I think where it's owned by L'Oreal love to add denatured alcohol into formulations. And while that's probably okay for like 90% of people, that sort of 10% of people with sensitive skin could struggle with this. And given the fact that retinol sensitizes the skin, you really don't want to get into that cycle.
Yeah.
You've listened to them all. You've used a lot of them.
I've used a lot. I've prescribed a lot.
Prescribed a lot. I mean, you are a minimalist guy. So I know that you just use EGF and retinol, basically, right?
That's it.
That's all you use. He does cleanse, as we have found out. But which one is your overall retinol that you'd say I need in my bag all the time?
Based on my experience, based on everything we've discussed, for reasons rather that we've discussed, I would go with the Ordinary.
Right.
And why would I go with the Ordinary? Because I like the range, I trust the range, and I like the standardization of it. I like the idea of the squalene added to it, so you get that emollient. And I like the idea of going very, very low on the retinols if you need to, and you can also build up to higher grade retinols. And I don't find, based on those I've suggested it to, it hasn't really irritated anyone's skin. There doesn't seem to be any denatured alcohol added to it, no other perfumes added to it. So overall, very well tolerated with a wide range of strengths of the retinol and good hydration.
Yeah, I mean, you convinced me. So, but I would definitely put like a commended place for the Kiehl's one, because I was pretty impressed with that. Just the addition of like niacinamide and with the other nice emollients in there, it's a really nice formulation.
Sure. And the Tebiskin, I would certainly put it amongst that category as well, because I like.
Let's just include all of them.
It's fine, but you know, highly commended as well. Good idea to put an SPF in it. Good.
That's really good.
And those would be my top 3 picks, but certainly the Ordinary for me is number 1, and for you, number 1.
But I mean, I think I probably agree with you actually. I think the Ordinary, because of the standardization and how they're a lot more transparent with the percentages, because a lot of people, you know, talk about things about concentrations of retinols, but where you can standardize it, and they got a greater range of retinols. So I think just experimenting it and matching the right thing, maybe that's another idea for another video. Which Ordinary retinol is the one that formed for me?
So we will be producing more retinol videos. I consider it to be a jungle out there of retinol products. There's a lot to talk about retinols, medical grade retinols, over-the-counter retinols, in-clinic retinols, and third-generation retinols and retinoic acids.
Oh God, whoever wants to see me in a white coat talking about retinoids on a whiteboard,
to get a
click
breakdown,
subscribe.
Absolutely, we'll get a breakdown of the science of retinols. Then we'll link it in below.
Thank you so much, guys. If you like the video, just click like. If you've got any questions, just let us know too. And if there's any more videos you want us to do, don't forget to click subscribe, because we do listen to your requests about new videos.